Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam. Ramo Rajamani Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishacharachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Ramannasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham. Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhavatu Me Bho Rama Mamuddhara. Samasta Janakalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidwaram. Satgurum Brahma Vidwaram. We'll be studying Bhagavad Gita chapter 12 from today. Every text has its own uniqueness. That uniqueness is called as Apoorvata, something that you will not find that flavor elsewhere. Recently, I heard from one Mahatma Ji a very nice point. Swamiji said, there are so many texts we study, but we don't celebrate Jayanti of any text except Bhagavad Gita. We don't celebrate Ramayana Jayanti, Bhagavatam Jayanti, but Bhagavad Gita we celebrate Bhagavad Geeta Jayanti. Now, what could be the reason? One reason is Jayanti is celebrated of Avatar. Avatar means whenever the Lord manifests in a form, that occasion is celebrated as Jayanti. So Ram Navami is the Jayanti of Bhagwan Ram. Krishnashtami is the Jayanti of Bhagwan Krishna. Like that, Bhagavad Gita is an avatar of the Lord, which has the power to destroy our samsara. Advaitamrita Varshinim, that is the shower of Advaitam, and Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshanim. Through the shower of Advaitam, Bhagavad Gita, like a mother, destroys the samsara of a jiva. This was our Vidushekara Bharati Swamiji on Gita Jayanti Day. He shared this point. That Bhagavad Gita Jayanti we celebrate because Bhagavad Gita is avatar of the Lord. Now there are some other uniqueness. There is some other uniqueness also of Bhagavad Gita. First thing is, it's very saral, very straightforward. We enjoy chanting it. We don't get intimidated by any of these shlokas. And that is also one thing we have to appreciate. Puja Gurudev, he introduced this chanting of Bhagavad Gita. In a way, it took the fear out of studying Bhagavad Gita. That is true for any text. Wherever we do Parayanam, we do chanting, the meaning of that text can be easily understood. The student of Bhagavad Gita is unique. Student of Bhagavad Gita is Arjuna. Arjuna, the name, means one who does Arjanam. Arjanam means he gathers knowledge very well. That person is Arjuna. Not a casual seeker, a very committed seeker. So much so that he says, Bhagwan, I have seen life sufficiently. And whatever things life has to offer, in those things, I don't see my solution. Nahi prapashyami mamapanudyat. Yachoka mucho shanamindriyana. He says, this samsara is burning me, and I don't see my solace in getting this rajya, in getting this kingdom. Sometimes we have to look at Bhagavad Gita independent of the Mahabharata context. He is not only asking about right and wrong, he is asking deeper questions of life. Where a mumukshu is coming to Sadguru. Bhagwan Krishna being his teacher, he says, I've seen sufficient of life. My solution is not coming from this world. So that is one quality of Arjuna who does Arjanam, wants to gain knowledge. And second etymology of Arjuna is one who has Riju Swabhava, one who is straightforward in his questions, straightforward in his personality. You see, entire Bhagavad Gita, the questions of Arjuna are very, very simple. He says, Bhagwan, in 6th chapter, he says, whatever you said, this Samya Yoga, it is okay, but I am unable to get Stiram Sthitim, eternal abidance in this truth. He is not refuting Bhagwan. He doesn't say, what you said is wrong. He says, what you said is right. We have to seek that truth. We have to seek that self-abidance. But steadiness doesn't come in this self-abidance. Then Bhagwan Krishna answers this question. If you notice all his questions, they're very, very straightforward. That's why Bhagwan gives him the title of Anagha. Not easy to get this title from. To get this title in the first place, but more importantly, getting it from Bhagwan. Anagha means, O sinless one. One whose mind has become so pure that he is fit to gain this knowledge. That is our Arjuna. One who does Arjanam of Jnanam, one who has Riju Swabhava, and at the same time, who has the ability to lift his mind above the immediate situation around him. That is third quality of Arjuna, which is very, very unique. We hear the word Udasina. Udasina means Ut Asina. Slightly above, this person has to be seated. Above what? Above his immediate surrounding. The thing which is concerning him right now, having the ability to lift the mind above that situation. Now, we might not be perfected. If we are already perfected, then we don't need the teaching. But at least for the sake of teaching, he should be able to lift his mind up. That is why after third chapter, Arjuna's question, first of all, it shifts away from war in the first chapter itself. Little bit in the second chapter beginning, he asks about what is his role right now. But after third chapter, it shifts above dharma adharma also. By the time he reaches 12th chapter, he is asking about Saguna Bhakta and Nirguna Bhakta. And where is he asking this? In the middle of battlefield. And it is not that somebody else will fight the war. He is the main player. What do they call it? MVP. Of the whole team, the war depends upon him. But that is his uniqueness, to lift the mind above his immediate situation. That is the student of Bhagavad Gita who is very special. Does Arjanam, has Riju Swabhava, and can remain Udasina. When the teaching comes, that teaching will give more strength to go back. But if our situations are so overpowering that it doesn't allow us to listen to the teaching also, then it is difficult to benefit from the teaching. That quality of Arjuna is his uniqueness. Second uniqueness is the teacher of Bhagavad Gita, who is none other than Bhagwan Krishna himself. Whenever we feel or we hear that God talks to a devotee, devotee talks to God, sometimes you might wonder, where do we start now? I also want to talk to Bhagwan, but where should I start? How should I know what does Bhagwan like? It is said the words of Bhagavad Gita are precisely what he would have told us if we asked anything to Bhagwan. Arjuna was lucky that he could directly ask Bhagwan and he could hear what he said. But anytime we get any question, the most authentic place to seek answer is Bhagavad Gita. And it is not another Rishi Muni or somebody else who is giving this teaching. It is Sakshat Brahma, Paramatma himself, saying these words. Sometimes when you go to some art museum, they write the description down there. What is this art? Who did this? But if the artist himself is there, then the joy of looking at that art is more. Like that Bhagwan, who is the source of all knowledge, he is giving this knowledge to Arjuna. So it is coming from Gaumukh, the original source from which this teaching has emerged. Third uniqueness is the text itself of Bhagavad Gita. Puja Guruji once asked us, how will you define Bhagavad Gita? Some people said it is Smruti Grantha. Upanishad is Shruti, Bhagavad Gita is Smruti, Brahma Sutra is Nyaya. Then somebody gave a few other answers, Bhagavad Mahabharata context and so on. Then finally Guruji said, Bhagavad Gita is Marga Darshaka Grantha. Means it will show me what should be my path in my life. More than the philosophy part is very sweetly packaged in Bhagavad Gita. Unless you see it, unless you push for it, it will not emerge. Bhagwan Shankaracharya's commentary on Bhagavad Gita is primarily for philosophy. He says right in the beginning, I won't focus on sadhana. That's why for all sadhana pointers, more elaboration you will find in other commentaries. Bhagwan Shankaracharya says the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita is sometimes misunderstood. People think it's talking about dualism, it's talking about Sankhya, it's talking about something else, talking about karma. To establish that Advaitam is the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, he says, I'm writing this commentary. But the uniqueness of Bhagavad Gita is, it will give us Margadarshan. Show us the path whenever we want to do something. Mind wants to do something. If you have studied Bhagavad Gita, this thought will come. This is what you have to do. This is what you should not do. And the last uniqueness is the place in which Bhagavad Gita was given. Not any ashram, not morning time. Birds are chirping. Behind there are snow-capped mountains. It is in the middle of a battlefield. This point we have to constantly remember that if our inner mindset is right, even the most difficult situation can become our puja room. Puja Gurudev writes this statement in 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He says, if we have the right vision, even the most difficult situation, wherever it is, in family, at work, that particular situation will become our altar of worship. This is shown by the location of the teaching. If this teaching can be practiced by Arjuna in the battlefield, this teaching can be practiced anywhere. Now, 12th chapter is very important chapter in the whole Bhagavad Gita because it is culminating the teaching of bhakti. First 6 chapters are talking about nature of the self, Tvam Pada Vichara. 7th through 12th chapter, Bhagwan says, I've spoken sufficient about you. Now I will talk about myself. So Bhakti Yoga begins from 7th to 12th chapter. The culmination of this teaching is in this 12th chapter. And one trivia for 12th chapter is, after Arjuna asks the question, Bhagwan answers for 73 verses, all the way until 14th chapter, 22nd verse, is only Bhagwan Krishna talking. When the question that he has asked is so important, Bhagwan feels we need to have thorough elaboration. Sometimes you'll find a question in 13th chapter, but if you exclude that, in many places there is no question by Arjuna. Some Mahatmas say they have been added later so that we put it in context. But 73 verses is an answer to one question of Arjuna. Longest that Bhagwan Krishna has spoken is after this 12th chapter. And we should remember, Bhagwan Krishna, while he was teaching, he didn't make this division of chapters. Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Or before Arjuna said, he said Arjuna Vacha, Shri Bhagwan Vacha. That was added by Bhagwan Vedvyasji. Bhagwan Vedvyasji, through his Divya Chakshu, he saw what Bhagwan Krishna is teaching. And in meter, he composed his teaching so that we can benefit from Bhagwan Krishna's teaching. Just like we chant 15th chapter before eating, many places 12th chapter is chanted. In particular, the Bhakta Lakshanas, Adveshta Sarva Bhutana. Bhagwan Krishna is going to say at the end, even if we don't have these qualities, if with Shraddha we want to bring these qualities, for that, whatever we are doing, chanting, going to temple, doing seva, such devotee is dearest to me. He might not know how to explain those qualities. He might not see those qualities in himself. But his faith is, if Bhagwan has said it, I have to bring it. So that chanting of these qualities, it is said, inspires the sadhaka to remain steadfast. Let us see the question by Arjuna. Once you see the question, then you have to come back to the previous verse because he is going to continue. He is going to refer back to 11th chapter. But first, let us see what is his question. Those who can keep your video on, I would encourage you to do that. I have the screen in front of me, so I see that all of you are seated in the class. Okay, good. Arjuna uvacha evaṃ satata yuktaye bhaktastvam paryupaasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Arjuna uvacha evaṃ satata yuktaye bhaktastvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Arjuna is asking Bhagwan, Bhagwan, in this way, those who are constantly meditating upon you. Now, whenever you say this statement, what does it imply? Something has been said before. Arjuna has understood it and is asking Bhagwan, in this way who meditate, means whatever you said in last verse of 11th chapter. He says, I understood whatever you elaborated, your nature, and you said, those who meditate upon me, they come to me. So Arjuna is asking, those who are meditating you in Saguna form, with attributes, ye evaṃ satata yuktaha tvam paryupaasate. Ye bhaktaha, those devotees of yours who are worshipping you with form. Now that Tvam can refer to Bhagwan as Ekarupa, means the one with a flute, one with curly hair, one with bow and arrow, different avatar, Ishtadevata worship, or it can also refer to Bhagwan as Vishwaroopa. Because just now he has heard Vishwaroopa Darshan. 11th chapter he just heard about Bhagwan's Vishwaroopa. He's asking, those who worship you as Vishwaroopa, between them and those who are worshipping you as Avyakta, ye cha api aksharam avyaktam. Akshara avyakta means attributeless, pure Advaita Vedanta, Shuddha Advaita Vedanta, that pure consciousness without any conditionings. Between them, Tesham ke yoga vittamaha, who has understood you better. With dhatu means to know. With tamaha means supreme most knower. He is not asking who is better of the two. Huh? He is asking who has understood you well. Is your Saguna Bhakta right in understanding you? Or your Nirguna Bhakta correct in understanding your form? Between these two, who has understood you better? If you want an example, he is asking as though Saguna Bhakta is somebody like Surdashi. He worshipped the Lord with form. Without physical eyes, he got darshan of the Lord. All his songs in Surasagar, they're so beautiful. It is said he would stand in front of the Lord every day and tell which vastram Bhagwan is wearing. Now people got some doubt. They said, is he really, he can't see? Or he's just making it up? So one day what they do is, they don't put any vastram on the Lord. And say, now you tell, what is it? Then he composes a bhajan, Aaj deki hari nanga mananga, Jalasuta bhushana ranga viraje, Niraki chabita hari ananta ananga. He says, Lord, without his any vastram, is looking so beautiful that I cannot describe. He's like that Kamadeva who has taken a physical form. And all this was without his physical eyes, Charma Chakshu. He said he had Vallabhacharyaji's blessings. Just a touch gave him this darshan. You know, there is a beautiful movie also on Surdashi, and this song is very nice. Aaj dekho hari nanga mananga. So between Surdashi on one side, and you have Gaudapadacharyaji on the other side. This is other than Turiya Brahma. He says there is no Jagat, there is no Upadhi. Upadhi means conditioning. Other than Turiya, he says there is nothing which exists. He is meditating upon the same truth without conditionings. So between Surdashi and Gaudapadacharyaji, who has understood you better? That is the question of Arjuna. He says, you tell me so that I can also align my thinking. And this question is very natural. Huh? Until 6 chapters, Bhagwan spoke about that truth which is devoid of conditionings. From 7th chapter onwards, he spoke about that truth with conditioning. Saguna, 7th chapter onwards. So between these two, he's asking, who has understood you better? One who understands you without form, without attributes, or the one who worships you and understands you with attributes? Between these two, who has understood you better? Question is clear, right? No? Okay. We'll come back. This verse is not done yet. Now we have to see the word evaṃ. Arjuna said evaṃ, right? Evaṃ means what? In this way, whatever you spoke right now. Who is a Saguna Bhakta? So Bhagwan in 11th chapter, 55th verse, he gives this summary of Saguna Bhakti. You see the gravity of this verse we can appreciate by looking at one line that Shankaracharya writes to introduce this verse. 11th chapter, 55th verse. Shankaracharya says, Sarvasya Gita Shastrasya Sarabhutah Arthah Nishreyasarthah Anushtheyattvena Samuchitya Uchyate. He says Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses. The essence of 700 verse is in this verse. Essence of 700 verse is in 55th verse of 11th chapter. And he says if we are able to live our life per this verse, it will take us to the supreme most goal. This is how Shankaracharya introduces this verse. Now let us see what is the 55th verse. Mat karma krunmat paramaha mad bhakta sanga varjitaha nirvairas sarva bhuteshu yassamameti pandava mat karma krunmat paramaha mad bhakta sanga varjitaha nirvairas sarva bhuteshu yassamameti pandava. Once Puja Gurudev, he was ready to get into a car, and somebody comes to him, one youngster, and asks him, please teach me Vedanta. And his answer was two words, attach and detach. In that, whole of Vedanta is summarized. This particular verse is an elaboration on what Gurudev said, attach and detach. Bhagavan Krishna is telling us, three things we have to attach. Two things we have to detach. Mat karma krut, mat paramaha, mat bhaktaha. Three things we have to come closer to. Sangavarjitaha, nirvairaha. Attachment and enmity we have to give up. Means come closer to Bhagavan by practicing these three things. Go away from the world, stay away from the world by practicing the other two things. Sangavarjitaha and nirvairaha. Now each word we will see. First one is matkarma krut. Who is a Saguna Bhakta? Who is a devotee of the Lord? Bhagavan says first thing we have to ask ourselves is whatever work we are doing, for whose sake we are doing it. The insignia of a devotee is whatever he does, the altar is Bhagavan. Mat karma krut means he does his actions for the Lord. Every action might not be formal worship. Means he will not sit 24 hours doing Archana of the Lord. But whatever work he is doing becomes his Archana. This was one of the first sadhanas that Shankaracharya gave us in Sadhana Panchakam. Vedo nityam adhiyatam taduditam karmasvanushthiyatam teneshasya vidhiyatam apachitihi. Apachiti means pujanam. Whatever actions we are doing, tena ishasya vidhiyatam. Through that, connect with the Lord, offer it to the Lord, and make that action as flower of worship. That's why they say, whatever flower we offer to the Lord should be fragrant flower. Nirgandha eva kimshuka. There is one flower which is kimshuka flower. It doesn't have any fragrance, but it looks very nice. It is said for worship, it could be a simple flower, but it has to be fragrant flower. The symbolic meaning there is whatever we offer to the Lord, the action should be done in such a way they are fit and worthy to be offered. One cannot say, I will steal something and then offer that stolen thing to the Lord. It has to be our own hard-earned thing, and that has to be offered to Bhagavan. See, our Shiva Mahimna Stotram, the background story is what? There was a Gandharva, Pushpadanta, who used to steal flowers from a king's garden. And those stolen flowers he would offer to Bhagwan. And because he was a Gandharva, he had the ability to disappear. So that king one day with all his soldiers, he tries to catch him but cannot catch him, spreads the Nirmalya. Nirmalya means whatever is offered to the Lord, that particular thing is not called flower anymore. Just like Naivedyam is not called food, it becomes prasada. Like that, anything offered to the Lord becomes Nirmalya. So that Nirmalya, which removes the mala of our mind, that Nirmalya he puts on the floor. So when Pushpadanta Acharya he steps on it, he loses his power to be invisible. Then he chants Shivamahimna Stotram, composes Shivamahimna Stotram out of devotion to the Lord and gets back his power. But the main thing there is, Bhagwan doesn't like something which is not done correctly. He says, if you want to offer to me, I'm not looking for only gold and silver. Whatever things we have done in a dharmic way, out of that thing, he says, first offer yourself and offer the whole thing. So initially we will say, offer little bit of it. But a stage comes when he says, Bhagwan, I don't want anything. Whatever is there is yours. That's where this line comes. The Swami Akhandanand would say, Vishwa ki samagri se Vishweshwar ki puja. What is karma yoga? What is working for the Lord? He says, this body also doesn't belong to me. I have no control, actually speaking, on this body. And all other resources I'm using for my work, for my duty, it has been given by the Lord. Belongs from Vishwa only. Through that Vishwa, the samagri, the ingredients I'm taking from Vishwa, I'm worshipping Vishweshwara. That is his bhavana. He says, for whom are you working? He says, I'm working for Bhagavan. The epitome of this we see in Sundarakanda, we see in Hanumanji, where there is no doubt about his identity. You know, his identity is as though erased. In spite of doing all the work, in spite of working hard, in spite of being so diligent, what is erased is his identity. Then how are things running? He says, Sankalpa is of my Bhagavan. The power belongs to the Lord. Credit belongs to the Lord. He says, I am his instrument to accomplish it. Another example given is when you want to worship Gangaji, you don't bring water from other river and worship Gangaji. You take Gangaji's water and worship Gangaji. Like that, this Vishwa which is there, that belongs to the Lord. Through that world, through that Vishwa, he is worshipping Bhagavan. So that is the meaning of Mat Karmakrut, the one who is working for the Lord, first quality. Second is Mat Paramaha. Mat Paramaha. You know, somebody can be working for another person, but not necessary he considers that person as supreme. Mat Paramaha means there is nobody greater than God in his life. He doesn't put any person, any individual, any object greater than Bhagwan doesn't consider them as greater than Bhagavan. Bhagwan Shankaracharya gives an example. There might be a soldier working for a king, but not necessary. He considers that king as Paramaha. His mind might be somewhere else. So, unlike that person, this devotee of the Lord not only works for the Lord, but considers him as supreme. That is why it is said whenever we praise something, right? See, transactionally we might praise, but in our own eyes, we should not, or we should be very clear in this understanding that other than Bhagwan, there is nothing worth praising excessively. Again, a transactional praise is different. If a child sings, you praise. But the main thing is, in our own eyes, the one who is really worth of praise is the Lord alone. You know, there are so many saints. 12th chapter, we have to always study with life of saints. Then only these values become alive. We have heard so many of Annamaya Chariji's Krutis, compositions. It is said the king who was there, he wanted Annamaya Chariji to come to his kingdom, come to his court, and compose similar stuti for him. Just like he composed for Bhagwan, he said, compose few of this for me. And in those days, kings liked this, they had bards. Every morning, when they would wake up, they would sing their stuti. I wonder what kind of joy it was. They only have appointed, and those people have to sing their stuti. So he wanted Annamaya Chariji to compose something so that his bards could sing. He said, my tongue has been committed to the Lord. Other than him, I will not praise anybody. And for this, he was imprisoned. And in that prison, he composed many compositions on the Lord. Another thing I'll share. Whenever you read this life of saints, there are so many miracles which are written there. And that is where our Shraddha will get strengthened. We are not going to get by logically analyzing. We are not going to get much by logically analyzing. Was it right or was it wrong? Did it really happen or something else happened? He said their bhakti was so great that nothing was impossible for them. Even if you read the life of Namdevji Maharaj, every other page, you will find so many miracles. Narsim Mehtaji, his life also. Once a group of people come and say, we are collecting donation. Can you give some credit for this project? He takes Bhagwan's name, writes one name and says, in this name I give 300 rupees or whatever that currency was. And he doesn't even know who that person is. And it is said Bhagwan takes the avatar of that person and gives people this money, whatever he had written. And there is a bhajan also he has composed, that Bhagwan, save my words on this person's name. Whenever I read this, I feel I should know a little bit of all languages. Gujarati, little bit, Tamil, little bit, so that we can understand what their work is. Otherwise, you have to depend so heavily on translations. Many things are lost in that. But the main point is Mat Paramaha. In his own eyes, Bhagwan is the supreme. If he wants anything, he will go to him. Nobody else he considers as greater than God. There was one king who was very pious. And in his kingdom, there was a Mahatmaji who was living. Very accomplished Mahatmaji, great tapasvi. Several people used to come to him. Now one day in that Mahatmaji's kutir, they wanted to build something, some shrine or something they had to build. So all these people gathered of that particular place and they were wondering whom should we contact. Should we reach out to that king? Should we reach out to this people? All other people are there. They started making a list, but this Mahatma was quietly sitting. He said, "Why don't you speak? Why are you not saying anything?" He said, "I'm just smiling at you. You made everybody's list, but you do not include his name. Because all others come here to seek solace. And we give them solace on the strength of Bhagavan. So if you want anything, ask first from him. Then you go to everybody else." The main point here is Mat Paramaha. In whatever we want, whom do we think is the final authority who will give us? In Bhakta's eyes, it is the Lord. Mat Paramaha. Now, somebody can work for somebody, might consider him as supreme also, but not necessary that he loves him. Love is something which is very unique, very special. Bhagavan says the third quality a devotee has is he not only considers Bhagavan as supreme, not only works for the Lord, but he also loves Bhagavan. Bhagavan Shankaracharya, he says, Sarvatmana sarvotsahena bhajate. Means with lot of enthusiasm, he does his sadhana, he worships the Lord. Utsaha is there in his heart. Means he doesn't have to struggle to do chanting, doesn't have to struggle to do pujanam, doesn't have to struggle to remember the Lord. That is the insignia of rasa. Wherever taste has come, there it is very effortless. We can go and immerse. Okay, 3 things Bhagavan says we have to do. Mat karma krit, work for me, consider me as supreme, mat paramaha, and love me, mat bhakta. Now this is as far as relationship with God is concerned. Now what should I do when it comes to world? First advice is sangha varjitaha. Arjuna, there are several things in this world. Just make sure that we don't get excessively attached to anything. Sangha varjitaha, being ready to withdraw from anything at any point. Gurudev calls it as healthy introvertedness. It is not getting some distaste or spoiling our transaction, but living in such a way that we don't give excessive importance to anything and develop attachment there. Sangha varjitaha. Prahlad, after his whole thing, whatever happened to him, when Narsimha Bhagwan came, he said, ask if you want to ask something. The only thing Prahlad asked was, Bhagwan, may no desire sprout in my heart. After a lot of time, I have come here, long journey, I have come here. You bless me in such a way that this atrupti means discontentment. That ground is where all desires sprout. He says, give me that contentment by which I don't have all these kind of desires. Because of that desire, Sangha comes. Because of that, Samsara comes. Sangha varjitaha. And the last one is Nirvairaha. Sarva bhuteshu. Bhagwan adds that adjective. Not with few people. Nirvairaha means not having any enmity. Not with 1 or 2 people. He says with everybody. Because bhakti and vaira cannot go together. Devotion and enmity cannot go together. He says, on one hand, I'm trying to see Bhagwan as all beings. And on another hand, I'm having enmity towards a person. Because of my raga dvesha, he says these 2 things cannot go together. In one place, Bhagwan Shankaracharya translates Kshama, forgiveness. as aparityaga lakshana. Tyaga means to let go. Aparityaga means to not let go. This is what is forgiveness in spite of whatever experience comes our way. To not let go of that other individual is called as kshama. Mentally, huh? In our own heart, doors are always open for everybody. If somebody is able to do that, he says that is this quality of nirvairaha. Somebody like Yudhishthira, that's why he gets the name Ajata Shatru. Although Shatru Duryodhana was right next to him, in his own heart, he was nirvairaha. Nirvairaha sarvabhuteshu. Next line is very beautiful. Yaha samam eti pandava. One who does this, that person comes to me. Now, what does this mean? That person comes to me. It is said, whatever qualities are there in the Lord, same qualities start reflecting in this person. That is Upasana Siddhanta. Now, this sadhaka doesn't feel proud of it. Huh? Now I'm getting some qualities. Not in that way. But Upasana is whatever we meditate upon, those qualities come to us. So, because of his bhakti, he has practiced all these 5 things. What are the 5? Mat karma krut, working for the Lord. Mat paramaha, considering Lord as supreme. Mad bhaktaha, loving the Lord. Sangha varjitaha, not getting attached to any person, any object. Nirvairaha sarvabhuteshu, not having enmity towards anybody in life. This is one who does these 5 things, gets qualities of Bhagavan. Means Bhagavan gives joy wherever he goes. This devotee also gives joy wherever he goes. That is the quality of this devotee. Another meaning of Yas Samameti Pandava is one level deeper than that. Yas Samameti Pandava means he starts seeing the world as Lord sees it. He starts seeing the world as Bhagavan is seeing it. I mean, there are so many things happening, so many things we might think should happen in certain way. Now our question should be, Bhagavan is also seeing it, right? If we say he is not seeing it, then we are trying to limit his sarvajñatva. If we think he is quiet on something, we are limiting his sarvashaktimatva. The one who is all powerful, all knowing, he is not restrained by anything. The way Bhagavan is seeing the world, this devotee starts seeing the world. Means his acceptance in life grows a lot. By practicing all these 5 things, he says his acceptance grows. These are the qualities of a Saguna Bhakta. These are the qualities of a Saguna Bhakta, one who practices all 5. And Arjuna is asking, in this way, evaṃ, one who has not only heard, but he has lived his life in this way. One who has attained you. Satata yuktaye. Now look at the beauty of the word satata. Huh? Even if it can be greatest Saguna Bhakta, he cannot have smruti of the Lord all the time. If you say satatam refers to recollection, we cannot continuously keep repeating all the time. So what does that word satata mean? Satata here means his conviction is in the Lord. Even if he does something else, all the previous things, considering Bhagwan as supreme, loving Bhagwan, doing things for Bhagwan, those things are not lost. It is just like saying, let us say there is mother and child. Mother loves the child, right? Does things for the child. And child in mother's eyes, apple of the eyes, supreme. Now that doesn't mean mother will not do anything else. If she is going to work, doing something, her love for the child is not diminished. It doesn't get affected in any way. That work doesn't interfere in that love. Because it is so deep rooted, it cannot be shaken off by any action. Like that, his love for Bhagwan is so deep rooted, no matter what he does, that love is always there. That is the meaning of the word satata yukta. Otherwise, we cannot understand this word as far as recollection is concerned. You can do Nama Japa for some time, but 24 hours if you have to do Nama Japa, you have to shift mind away from something. Means if you have to do something else, you will have to shift mind away from Nama Japa. Swami Akhandananji, he says, there are only two ways by which you can do satata yukta. Now, independent of this verse, don't connect back to this verse. He says, either understand Bhagwan as all drishya or understand him as drashta. Either understand Bhagwan as all drishya, means whatever I'm seeing, whatever I'm hearing, whatever I'm touching. Don't say it is elements. It is my Bhagwan Krishna. Tvamapastam somaha, tvamasi pavanastvam hutavaha. He says, you are the air, you are the wind, you are the water, you are the fire. Who says this? Ignorant people say this. For a devotee, this is all Shiva. Element, looking at it as element is not devotion. He says looking upon elements as God, that is bhakti. So either understand Bhagwan as Vishwaroopa or understanding Bhagwan as drashta. Means whatever thoughts are emerging, they are emerging from the same Lord. It might be thought about work. It might be thought about any other worldly thing, but what is illumining it? That is the same Lord. Prabhate mani Rama chintita java, pude vaikari Rama adi vadava. Manatha Shlok, Samartha Ramdas ji, he says, early in the morning, start your day by taking Bhagwan's name. Prabhate, early morning. Rama chintita java, thinking about the Lord, you should continue. But next line is beautiful. Pude vaikari. Vaikari means a manifest speech. Whatever we might be speaking, it might be worldly speech also. But Rama adi vadava. Understanding that the origin of this worldly speech is the same Lord, not something else. That's why we have para, pashyanti, madhyama, vaikari. Vaikari Vani is the manifest speech. Before that is madhyama Vani, the thought of speaking. Before that is pashyanti, desire to speak. And before that is unmanifest, paravani, which is Bhagavad Swarupa. He says, unless we connect everything that we are doing with the same Lord within, satata yuktaha will not happen. Either we will make distinction between secular life and spiritual life. It says 9 to 5 I am worldly, early morning I am spiritual. But the whole point of spiritual study is to understand everything is Bhagavan. Evaṃ satata yuktaye bhaktaha tvam paryupaasate. Paryupaasate means worships you in several ways. Who is this bhakta? Saguna bhakta. Paritaha upasate. We saw in Ramcharitmanas, there are 4 trees. Under one tree, he does dhyanam. Under second tree, he does japa. Third tree, he does manasa puja of the Lord. And fourth tree, he does Katha, Rama Katha of the Lord. Means our sadhana has to become joyful. We should have sufficient variety, where we can keep our mind positively occupied. Just like if a guest comes home, we take care of them, right? Sevate means taking care. Now, do we take care just by one thing alone? I mean, do we just tell them, do you want water, and leave them there? No, paritah sevate. We ask them, are you comfortable? Do you want to rest? Do you want to have food? Whatever they like, we want to make sure they get it. Means in several ways we are taking care. That is called as paritah sevate. Like that, his connection with the Lord is paryupaasate. In different ways, he has connected with Bhagwan. His mind is soaked in the Lord. And the second category is yecha api aksharam avyaktam. Aksharam means that which is changeless. Naksharati, which doesn't modify or change. And second is, it is avyaktam. Avyaktam. It is unmanifest, never becomes an object of sense organs. Now, see the beauty of this word, avyaktam. Huh? If there is something which is avyakta, the only way to indicate it is through negation. The only way to indicate avyakta vastu is by nisheda. Because if you want to indicate it through any other means, you need some attribute. If you want to say, this thing is like this, it's okay, this thing means what? Some attribute should be there, holding on to which you can describe it. But avyakta means it doesn't have any attributes. What does it mean? It is not there? He says, no. It is not there as any other object. It is me, myself. The only way to point out avyakta vastu is as aparoksha and through negation. Think about it. Huh? Avyakta vastu, if you want to point it out as paroksha, what will you have to bring? Desha. You'll have to bring space. He said it is not here, it is somewhere. Whatever is there in space should have some form. Otherwise, how will you distinguish space and that object? Rupa has to come. If Rupa comes, some attribute has come. That is why Kenopanishad Rishi, he said, na vidmaha, na vijanimaha. Other than teaching it through negation, other than teaching it as aparoksha, our own true self, there is no other way we know of teaching this. Because that is the nature of this thing. If it is avyakta, it has to be indicated as aparoksha, and the only way to indicate it is through negation. The moment you bring any indicator, it will bring some kind of attribute, some guna will come there. Those who have understood you as this nirguna, yecha api aksharam avyaktam, tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Who has understood you better? This we will continue in the next session. Next session, Bhagwan is going to answer Arjuna's question. And wherever possible, we'll try to refer back to Life of Saints. We've done this chapter before in Labor Day camp, long time back, 2020. You all remember or no? But those camps, what happen is we get only 6 sessions. So you are constrained on how much you want to go in every verse. So here we are no hurry to complete the chapter. So we can explore more, revel more in what different Mahatmas have thought about. One thing about Bhagavad Gita is you never know how deep every word is. It looks very simple, but you need that kind of tapasya of Mahatmas. to open it for us. Our job is very easy. Just hear what they have said, read what they have said, and try to apply it. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.